Thanks for joining us. We have Kyle Robbins, who is a sales executive with Personify. I'm going to turn it over to him to take it away. We will be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, feel free. I think I can speak for Kyle. This is pretty laid back. You can speak up if you have a question or put it in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that. So before we do get started, I'd like for Kyle to know who's on the call. So if we could go around the room and just introduce yourselves, tell what chapter you're with, that would be awesome. So Judith and Haley, you're on my screen first, so we'll go ahead and start with you.
So I'm Judith Watkins. I am the new executive director for the North Gulf Coast chapter.
And I'm Haley, sitting here with Judith. I'm president-elect, so I'm just trying to get as much knowledge as I can. Thank you.
Tina? You're on mute.
I think I would know how to do this by now, right?
That's okay.
I'm Tina Sadat. I'm the executive director of the Georgia chapter. We've been using this system for about 2.5 years, 2 years maybe.
And then Caitlin is on the call from Georgia as well. Hey, Caitlin. Julia?
Hey, I'm Julia. I'm with the Alabama chapter.
And Stephanie, it looks like Stephanie's still connecting. Jackie, do you want to introduce yourself? So Jackie is with the Ohio Valley chapter, I believe. I always get those Ohio chapters messed up. I think she's with the Ohio Valley chapter. And Stephanie is with our Arizona chapter. Looks like she's still connecting. So we'll let you take it away, Kyle.
Awesome. Hey, it's great to meet everyone. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. Hopefully everyone's able to see my screen and see kind of a tentative agenda of what we're about to run through. Some of you are users, some of you are not. This is just a really simple overview of what the system does, how it looks, and how it can benefit CAI chapters that may be looking to make a change in the future. Tina and Caitlin, I'm also in Georgia, so we have Personify is kind of broken down into 2 main offices. Our primary office is in Austin, Texas, but the next biggest office is here in Atlanta. So Georgia's been a client for a while. They're a great resource if anyone has questions on some like real world expertise. But I'm going to cover a lot of things today. The way I typically do a demo, it's more like a guided tour. I try not to talk at people. So like Emily said, if there's questions, if there's concerns, if there's anything that needs clarification, feel free to pop into the chat or come off mute. If you need me to rewind and talk about something, happy to do that too. Let me know. This is 100% a dialogue, so I want everyone to be involved at their comfort level. What we're going to go through today is just a really quick overview of MC Professional. So here at Personify, which some of you on the call might know us as MemberClicks, some of you might know us as Personify. These kind of calls are great to sort of clarify the difference. So back in 2020, around mid-December, Personify came to the table and they acquired MemberClicks. MemberClicks used to be its own company. We were our own entity. We used to compete with Personify in a lot of ways, but we found out we were more similar than we were different. So we ended up joining forces. And now if you were to purchase MemberClicks or Wild Apricot or 360 or any of our add-on products, you're purchasing them from Personify as a MemberClicks service. So that's kind of the quick breakdown of sort of the acquisition in a nutshell. What we're going to look at today is a little bit of the front end, kind of that user experience view. We'll talk about just some of the tools that members and users have access to on the front end when they log into their member portal. We'll talk a little bit about, well, the majority of what we'll talk about will be the admin side. So what you as admins have access to, what you can use, where you find all of the tools that you need. And if Emily hasn't mentioned this or Kelly hasn't mentioned this, this is kind of a 2-part series. So today is exclusively MC Professional. We're still working on our end here at Personify to figure out when and how we're going to do a Wild Apricot sort of demo like this and kind of figure out how we can get the most exposure for both platforms, because we do know that a lot of CAI chapters are using a combination of the two. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at in a nutshell. We'll talk about some of the profile and the attribute settings that come with the MemberClicks platform. Talk about some dashboards, some reporting, some metrics tracking, because that's always the fun stuff. And then we'll talk about, you know, anything else that folks want to look into specifically on just how it looks, how it works. Open to sort of changing things on the fly if anybody has questions. And then some of the stuff we'll talk about today is what the long-term, you know, discounts and incentives that CAI chapters get access to because they're a partner of Personify. And then I know we've gotten a lot of questions lately and from plenty of our CAI clients as well about support. So I want to cover that too, because we have put together a short-term and a long-term support strategy for all of our clients, but especially, you know, CAI chapters as well. So that's kind of what we'll look at. Any questions about what we're covering today? Does anybody want to see anything in particular that I can throw on the slide? All right, silence is golden. I'll take it. Let me go ahead and cycle through this. So both Wild Apricot and MC Professional are considered all-in-one solutions. They're designed to eliminate redundancies within your current software stack by providing some very simple, very basic features that are simple to use, but provide a robust suite of content at your disposal. So membership management, event registration, I won't read the slide word for word, but a little bit of everything that you can use on a day-to-day basis is included with the system. And we say it's simplified just because from the user perspective, that's the goal, is to make it as easy as possible. But it is a very deep, very broad system. There's a lot of stuff that can be done here. And what we're trying to do is not only, you know, eliminate those redundancies, but provide just efficiency from the software perspective in a lot of different ways. And the key things to keep in mind, you know, the membership management, we know that's important. Financials are always a question we get because some vendors do it, some vendors don't do it. So we always like to cover that. And then support, of course, long-term is something that should be important for all organizations. And it is important for all organizations. We always like to make sure we cover sort of how our support works and how that's long-term support, and then how support and training and development is handled on the front end with implementation as well. Because we don't expect anyone to be an overnight expert with any of the systems that we provide. We'll come back to this slide later, but we'll talk about today sort of what sort of discounts are available to CAI chapters and how that's going to look if anyone's looking to make a change. And we'll circle back to that. Go ahead and jump out of this. Anybody who's looking to overhaul their site, just as something to consider when assessing AMS vendors, we offer free websites with our Wild Apricot and our MC Professional platform. You get a template for free, you get redesigns for free during the onboarding process, and it's not required that you use one of our sites. It's more of a benefit for new clients. So there are 9 templates to choose from, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the chat box for us in case anyone wants to browse the portfolio here. But what you're going to see today is our Carmel template that's built into our demo environment. Carmel, Brookhaven, Tucker, and Roswell are our 4 most recent, like newest templates that are available out there. They're a bit more dynamic, a bit more modern looking. If you want something that's more classic or vintage is what we've heard folks call them, our older templates, Decatur and down, are going to be a bit more streamlined, a little bit more simplistic, but all of them do the same thing. They all have pretty much the same functionality. The bullet points under each description, yes, all Georgia names, you bet. As you can tell, we're a Georgia-based company. We were founded in Atlanta about 22 years ago. So yes, these are all Atlanta, or I guess North Georgia neighborhoods, suburbs, if you will. But yeah, this is dynamic. So if there's one that you see that you want to drill into a little bit, go ahead and feel free to click on that. If you've opened the link, it will give you a full screen rendering, and you're welcome to sort of navigate through that sample. But yeah, the templates are great. Again, not required that you do use our website. The admin panel, which we'll talk about as we sort of get further down this rabbit hole, does help you manage both the database information and the front end website. But if you have a website that you've invested a lot into and you want to keep it, or you're in the process of doing that, you're more than welcome to keep your existing site. We can plug in or exist on the back end of a third-party site, no problem whatsoever. So not a requirement that you have us there. And with that said, we'll kind of just jump right in and take a look at the system here. All right, so when members log in, they're going to be dropped into their profile page. The nice thing about MC Professional specifically, you can customize the landing page, both for each individual user type if you have multiple different user types or member types that you offer. But the landing page can actually be different for each user type. It does not necessarily have to be a navigation menu or a profile page. It can put folks into your blog. It can put folks into like an event reg form. You can kind of customize that, and it doesn't have to be streamlined for every member type. They can all have their own unique landing page. But what we've built in here is just a really nice way to show people that they're in the right place. So the welcome banner convention is something that a lot of our clients use. What we've built into our demo environment is based on the feedback that we've gotten from our existing clients and what's worked well for them. So this is kind of an amalgamation of all of those best practices. But we want to show folks, hey, this is your profile, you're in the right place, and this is who you're representing, so that they know right when they're dropped in here, they don't have to second guess it. And in the rare instance, although we do see it, not so rare, it's pretty common, where someone might be managing multiple profiles on behalf of somebody else and whatnot. If they're accidentally logging into the right or wrong profile, we want to kind of tell them that on the front end here.
Excuse me, sorry. This is Kate from CAI, Arizona.
Yes.
Just to take a step back, sorry, I'm driving and I'm trying to listen to what you're saying. So is it just MemberClicks? Or was it Wild Apricot that you can import your website? Because we were told when we went to Wild Apricot that we could not move our website. So that's why I'm just asking the distinction. Is it just MemberClicks you can port basically your website? Or is that a new feature? Because we've been with them for a couple years now.
You've always been able to do that on MemberClicks. You can always migrate
on
your
MemberClicks. Okay.
On MemberClicks, yeah. Wild Apricot, they do provide a proprietary site if you want to use it. That's not a product I particularly specialize in, but you can migrate your current site to a Wild Apricot template if you want to do that as well. I don't know how long that's been the case. I've been with Personify for a little over 2 years, and the entire time I've been here, I kind of signed on just before the acquisition. The whole 2 years I've been here, Wild Apricot clients have had access to a site through Wild Apricot if they wanted it.
Yeah, I just want, so there is a distinction. MemberClicks, you could move it. Wild Apricot, you could not, is what you're saying.
Possibly in the past, but in the last few years, you could do it through Wild Apricot as well. So it just depends on that client. Yeah,
okay. Well, all right, that answers my question. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking. So the navigation menu here, just a nice little launch pad that kind of pushes people into those calls to action that we all want them to participate in kind of from that initial landing page. You'll see a lot of redundancy here, and that's, any good website should have multiple ways to get to multiple things. But what we want to do for a member, just to give them the best experience, is kind of offer as much autonomy as you folks are comfortable extending to your members to manage their profile information. And that's just, their basic demographic info, name, email address, phone number, the whole 9 yards. There's no limit to the number of custom attributes you can have within the system. Anytime you publish a custom attribute, it can be added to unique member type profiles specifically, or it can be pasted across all of them if you offer multiples. And then you can also cherry pick which ones need to go where. So in certain instances, we have clients that have organizational or entity level members. Those attributes that might be assigned to those would be like annual revenue range and things like that, things that an individual user may not have on their profile. So you can assign those attributes when you build them strategically to make sure that you're capturing that information for accurate reporting purposes. When it comes back to autonomy, anything that has to be edited or changed on the fly by a member, the edit button's right there, big and bold, front and center, so that they can find it quickly. They can make those changes on the fly, save anything that they've made edits to, and keep their day moving. When you do open up those attributes for editing, you can strategically make some read-only, or you can make all of them editable. It's up to you. It's up to how often you want folks making changes and how you want to track that. It can be done through a form submission if you want to lock all of the attributes down. It's typically not something we see a lot of, but it can be done. There is a way to track attribute edits on the admin side, so you can see how often particular users are changing attributes, which attributes are being changed most often, and when they're actually making edits to those attributes. The system keeps track of that for you. So if someone's constantly changing email addresses or constantly changing their phone number, you'll know that, and that'll be on a user by user basis. So attributes wide open. We want those to be fluid as much as you folks are comfortable letting that happen for your users. And then we want financials to be accessible at a glance for members as well. So some folks who have been MemberClicks customers may see that this user portal is slightly different from what they have. That's something that's coming down the pipe for everybody. So this is something we've published in the last 4 to 6 months, I want to say. All of the new clients that sign on with us are going to have a member portal that looks very similar to this. And the old ones are sort of grandfathered in, and it's kind of optional if you want to make a change to this new layout or keep the one you have. It's entirely up to the client, depending on how long they've been with us. But new clients are going to get a view like this. So this is the one that we've been demoing for the last few months. But financials, so if anyone has an outstanding balance, we want to let them know that. We don't necessarily want them blowing up our emails or our phones trying to get access to, you know, do I owe anything? And the way I understand how CAI operates, it shouldn't be an issue anyway, but for a typical client, obviously financials are important, and seeing those balances, you know, in an easy to find place is important. So if a client or a user does have any outstanding balance, they'll find it right here at the top, and their member status will be highlighted right under that balance. Having a balance does not necessarily mean that a user is going to be inactive or in a lapsed or grace period. They may just have some outstanding donations or event reg funds that they have to pass along, and that's okay. If you click on the invoice list, it will tell you exactly how that balance is broken down based on how many outstanding invoices there are. All invoices are date stamped from the moment they're created, and a lot of those invoices that are created are automated through a form. So an event reg form, once it's submitted, if there is a payment associated with that, the invoice is automatically created. Same with donations, same for new members signing up, things like that. Members can make payments to these invoices right from their user profile. They cannot pay an invoice twice. So if I look at all outstanding invoices or all received invoices, I have one that's already been marked paid. I can only view what that invoice looks like and what those line items are. I cannot go back and pay it twice. So it eliminates sort of those duplications in your financials, keeps it nice and clean and streamlined. But anything that is outstanding, if I do want to go in here and pay it, I do have access to do that right here with my credit card number, my bank account information. All of that's pre-populated. Billing address is populated from the user's profile, assuming that it's the same. So it funnels them all into the same payment processor. And if you do take payments offline, you're not limited to only funneling them to an online processor. You can still take those payments by mail as well. So you're not pigeonholed by any means here. But the idea is self-service on the member aspect. So along with profile attributes, along with financials and invoices, users can also see, you know, any forms that they've submitted. And forms, as the current MemberClicks clients know, especially Georgia, because they're one of our rock star clients, and we love all of our Georgia clients a little bit more than everybody else. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, we have a soft spot for those folks. They can see this too. So any event reg, any donation form, any feedback poll, survey, voting, anything like that, it's going to go into the system through an automated portal. Again, it's going to go through a form. All of these are time and date stamped as well, so a user can see exactly when they've submitted it. If it's something that does have an invoice or a payment tied to it, they're going to see that in the balance column if there's anything there. They can also see how they filled this out. So if they do register for an event, they want to see exactly, if they can't remember how they filled it out, they can see based on the form layout how they answered each field historically. So if they put in the wrong email address, if they put in the wrong title or the wrong organization, if they're a part of multiple organizations and they forget, they can go back in here and see that. They can't make changes to this form, and that's really just to protect you folks and your sanity. If folks are constantly making changes to submissions that have already happened, it's going to jumble up your reporting. You as admins can go back and make edits to these forms if you need to on an ad hoc basis, but the idea is once something's submitted, it kind of lives in the system and cannot be almost like an NFT. It's non-fungible to the end user, only to you admins to make edits to it. So we've got profile info, we've got invoices, we've got forms, all of that stuff is stored and easy to access on the user portal. Same with email and contact history. So as members subscribe and unsubscribe to different e-lists and different modes of communication, they're going to see those in their, not only their inbox through their traditional email server, they're going to see it in their email history and their contact history on their profile as well. So any invoices that have been issued are going to have a time and date stamp from when that email is sent to their inbox. If they lose it or if it gets pushed into a junk folder accidentally, they've kind of have a backup here where they can see that information. You as admins can see all of this data on the back end in a slightly different view, but we of course want to give members a chance to police their own information, and ideally that will take more of those minutia administrative tasks off of your plate long term. There are some global settings that exist here, and you can publish different settings to this front end depending on, again, how much autonomy you want to extend to the end user. So resetting their password is self-service through their portal. It can also be done through an email chain. If they can't remember their password upon login, they can do it themselves. They can unsubscribe from mailing lists and newsletters globally right from this setting as well. And anything else you want to publish, there can be multiple sliders in here that can turn things on and off. And you as admins on the back end, there are more sliders available to you if you want to cherry pick things as well. So you can funnel them in the right direction, or you can manually override things on behalf of a user. Because what we want to do is get members out of their own way, right? It happens. All right. So navigationally speaking, when you do redo the site, if you do go with a proprietary MemberClicks site, really the sky's the limit when it comes to building out that site and how you want to navigate through things. This quick links menu will follow user from one page to another, so they always have those top call to actions right there in their face to jump into those things if they want to make a donation, if they want to look through the directory. And those can all be customized. There's no limit to the number of buttons that can exist in that menu. Like any good website, there should be an event calendar. Ours is no different. This actually exists as an iCal file, so users can push it out to their phone. And although it says iCal, it is compatible with Android devices or PCs as well. So member events, non-member events, any sort of announcements you want to post in the calendar, they can be color coded, and they can also be sorted and filtered based on those codes. So we've got some member events and some education events. If I want to isolate one or the other, I just select that button or that color, and it'll isolate just those events. Those events will also have their own descriptors and their own sort of landing page within the calendar, where you can add registration buttons, images, videos, the whole 9 yards. So it makes the calendar a bit more dynamic for the end user. And then they'll see upcoming events following them, just like they do with the quick links from page to page. And those are constantly shifting based on how many events you want to populate in that submenu. And then obviously what day of the week or day of the month it is, and depending on what's coming up. So pretty simple there. Member directories, one of those things that everyone needs. You have multiple views at your access through MemberClicks. So we have basically a primary and a secondary directory view. Primary view is obviously for members. When they're logged in, they have access to querying that directory based on location, based on role, based on email, name, phone number, you name it. You can select which attributes go into that directory that make it queryable. You can also dictate which attributes then show up to the end user if they were to make a search. So the workflow I typically run is a location search or proximity search, just to see who's in my area. And when it populates, you'll see, even though I'm logged in as a user and I have admin access, it's only showing me Organization, it's showing me location, and there is a contact email in here, but that's because I'm logged in. If I was logged out, I wouldn't necessarily see contact information. That's accessible to users only. So you can strategically gate content, whether it's through the directory or through the website, to users, to members and non-members. And you can also gate content for specific member types that other member types wouldn't see. And a use case for that is typically when we see folks offer free or discounted student memberships. Students, although they eat up an active member profile placeholder, might not get full access that a standard full-blown member would get. So certain web pages can be isolated to those active participant members as you see fit. So that's kind of the front end in a nutshell. Does anyone want to see anything particular from the user experience or the website aspect? Feel free to pop into the chat or come off mute. No? All right, excellent. So let's go ahead and swing to the back end here, where I'm sure most of you will spend the majority of your time here on the admin side. This is going to look familiar to our folks at the Georgia chapter. The dashboard on the back end is the same for everybody. So the only thing that changes, obviously, is the data that's populated within each database and how that's broken down based on your roster, your events, and your financials. So it's all specific to you. This is all ultra secure. We host all of our databases, all of our websites through Amazon Web Services because it is so secure. We do rolling backups of websites. So if your site does go down, we can restore it in a matter of minutes if it's one of our proprietary sites, of course. Same with the database. There are snapshots so that if it does crash or something crazy happens, we can restore it, but we don't put our hands or our fingers in any of your data. We sell the tool, you use it however, what capacity you want to use. Let's see. There's a chat question.
Yeah, there's a, do you see it or do you want me to read it to you?
I do see it, yeah. Is there a feature
Okay.
that allows members to receive texts about events and balances, etc.? Not yet, not through MemberClicks. So we did acquire another smaller company earlier this year. I want to say it was end of Q1, early Q2. That does offer texting from the system. We are alpha testing that with our Wild Apricot platform to see its viability. So we don't know if it's something that's going to extend to all of our AMS solutions, but it is a tool that we have acquired, ideally for Wild Apricot specifically, but it may be something that we kind of push into all of the AMS capabilities. We don't know yet, so we're still trying to figure that out. We should have more information on that tool at the beginning of next year. We're kind of using this year to see where it goes and how it works. Yeah. So it's coming down the pipe. We do have it. We own it. It's our company, our business now, our tool. Just trying to figure out where that feature fits into the stack with everything else. All right. So now that we're in our admin panel, there's a lot of places we can go here. If you do have a proprietary MemberClicks site that you're managing data for, you're going to handle anything website related through the website tab. And we've laid these navigation tabs across the top and we've labeled them as black and white as we can make it. The one caveat there is some of the community features like calendar, the discussion board, community forums, the contact center, the blog, the stuff that does populate on the front end of the website is put into that social tab there, but there's a handful of them that kind of live there. A combination of website and community are the two tabs you're going to use to edit any CMS content on the front end and change, social information like the calendar. Really easy there. So making website edits is really simple. I'll walk through it very, very quickly with you. This is definitely a high level sample because I am by no means a developer or an engineer, so bear with me. But our Meet the Board page, very simple, very basic. These are actually folks on our C-level team here at Personify, so you're getting kind of a glance at our team members. But if I needed to make edits to that, all I would do is find that web article under the website tab. Hopefully you've labeled it the same thing that the web page is showing to the public. And what it populates is a WYSIWYG editor. So that's just what you see is what you get. You do not have to be a coding expert to make web changes on the front end website. It's very, very simple. If I need to do something like change font color or add more cells to this, this table where these photos are stored, we'll just make a quick edit here. We'll take the bold off of that. All we do is apply that change on the back end. It'll tell us that they've been successfully saved. And then if you've got the front end and the back end open concurrently, you just refresh that page, and now this is no longer both. So it has not populated any hidden carriage returns, no hidden spacing, no complete change of hexadecimal code colors. It hasn't affected the images. It hasn't affected the subsequent text under each of those images. So again, easy to make those changes. The feedback we get on Wild Apricot is sometimes we do have that issue, and I'm sure anybody who's used Wild Apricot has had that issue as well. But if you do want to code, you can. There is a, let's see here, you can toggle into the HTML editor if you do have someone on staff that is more comfortable with that. I hear a lot that I know just enough to be dangerous. I'm in the same boat, so I don't recommend going that route. But if you want to try your luck, go ahead. You do have access to the raw code as well. Although the WYSIWYG editor, I'm telling you, is much, much simpler. And anybody who does have like a web design background on this call, if anyone here has used Joomla, then a lot of this is going to look very, very similar. So Joomla is a traditional open source website designing tool. I've used it myself many years ago when I did web design. We've kind of contracted Joomla to build us our own proprietary version of their system using kind of their baseline, their platform, but ours is ultra secure. It's much easier to use, but it still has that open source flexibility. So if you do want to add free plugins to the browser or to the website, if you want to add like maps and translators and things like that, Joomla does have that flexibility, but the true open source version isn't as secure. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. It is not your bare bones Joomla. We have our own proprietary version of it for security reasons. So I say that to say we have tons of resources at your disposal for long-term support, whether it's the website, whether it's the database, whether it's just like best practices, right? Joomla is ubiquitous. So if you Google Joomla, there are WikiHows, there are YouTube videos. It's easy to find stuff on how to use Joomla efficiently and how to do cool stuff with it. That being said, once you've made your edits to your website here and you close that out, when you're in the admin panel here, you have access to this red question mark down here at the bottom, which is our help center. So if you do need a refresher on how to build a form or how to run a report, you can find that in the help center. You can take a short course through our, not the Marvel Comic Universe, but through MemberClicks University is what MCU stands for, through our proprietary LMS, or you can watch, oops, let me go back here. You can load articles, and these articles are broken down by the same navigation tab titles here at the top, each section here. So if you're looking into forms, if you need a refresher, you can watch a video. If you want to customize the confirmation emails that go out of a form, the support and help center aspect that's associated with this, they all have visual aids. They all give you step-by-step instructions with visual aids. Some have videos, some don't, but it's laid out in black and white step-by-step. So it's really easy to see exactly what you need to do, where you need to go. Things are highlighted. They all look like that. So they're very user-friendly. If you're using one that's consistent, you're constantly forgetting how to do confirmation emails in a form, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on back here. You can follow a thread or favorite one of these and kind of get access to it quickly if it's something you're revisiting over and over and over again. You can also search by keywords, so you're not stuck navigating through this set. Keywords exist up here and on any of the pages within the articles if you want to find something quickly and easily. So let's go ahead and close this out. We'll head back to the landing page. So your roster, again, broken down by member type. This is dynamic. So as folks do fall into a grace period or a lapse status, it's going to show you that here. Anything that's in red or green is hyperlinked. So if you want to see your list of admins broken down, it's pre-sorted for you by number, but then you can actually jump in here and see a list of all of those admins. You can make changes to those profiles. You can move them around, give them different designations, change their permissions, the whole 9 yards. And that's for any profile in the system. I'll go ahead and take you into my profile and we'll kind of take a look at a cross section of just the admin experience from the profile view here. So as admins, you're seeing all of that basic demographic information that a front-end user sees. That's going to populate up here. So all the contact info will be in that first panel. All the built-in attributes will be at the top, and any custom attributes you build will populate in the custom attributes field. They're automatically allocated alphabetically. So regardless of what you call that attribute, it's going to fall into this list alphabetically, A to Z. You can see a user's contact preferences. So we talked about sort of those global settings and those preferences that users can change through their profile. This is where you can drill in a little bit deeper as an admin and make changes on behalf of those users if you have to, or if they've done a global unsubscribe like this, and you need to turn that back on for them, you can do that. You're not stuck with whatever the end user chooses themselves. You have override capabilities as admins here as well. We talked about the message history. You have a similar view to that here on the back end. You're going to see exactly what that user sees on their front end profile. You're going to see the time and date stamp for all of that correspondence that comes out of the system organically. I think users are only seeing the date, but you as admins can actually see the actual time of day that that email or message goes out of the system. That's anything, again, email related announcements, newsletters, all that good stuff. ELIS, same sort of thing. So ELIS is its own sort of subset of the system. Obviously, putting together ad hoc email campaigns or newsletters, you're going to do that through the contact center, which we'll talk about next. ELIS are kind of a one step down from that. So if you do want to put together short bulletins and ELIS that are specific to certain committees or certain groups or certain regions, you can build those out. You can manually add and remove users to those ELIS, and users can, because ELIS are open, they can also subscribe and unsubscribe to those ELIS. So when those emails go out through an ELIS blast, they're very short, very sweet. Again, we kind of think of them like bulletins. So they might be a sentence or two, a paragraph or two, but they're not going to look as clean and polished as like a newsletter that goes out. So they're much easier to add information to quickly that go out en masse. We have committee segmentation built in here, so you can see exactly what committees you're a part of as an end user, and you as admins can see all of that committee involvement as well. If we drill into this one layer deeper, you'll see that we've got some folks on here that have past committee involvement. So if they had a position and they get elected to a higher position, or they drop down to just a chair, you'll see their name in this list twice, and it'll tell you the dates that they had that position if it's changed. So they don't lose that historical information. That committee tracks it for the user throughout the life cycle of their membership. Committees can see a list of all of the other users that are a part of that committee. There are files that can be shared within a committee. And there's a message board type of feature that also exists specific to that committee. So committees don't overlap. Any messages or files that are shared to, in this case, the board of directors committee, are only going to be viewable by the folks that are a part of that committee, nobody else. Committees, just like user groups, can be manually populated by admins. So if a committee is open, if it's a volunteer committee, any member that has access to it can jump in there and participate. In this case, board of directors is a gated committee, so it has to be done obviously by election, and then the admins are going to have to populate the list of names if they're changing dramatically from one cycle to the next. So you have access to do that on the fly. And we'll go back here to the profile. Form submissions, just like the front end user sees that, admins can see that as well. They can also see the submission ID, which again is just tracking how that submission has been filled out section by section. But as admins, you can delete a submission if it's a dupe, or you can go in and make edits to this as though you are the end user. So you do have a workaround to this if you do need to make edits. Again, we take that away from users just so it doesn't throw off the reporting, but you do have the flexibility to come back in here and make those edits on the fly. And that's for anything that's submitted through a form will be tracked in the submissions tab. And again, we talked about invoices. It looks very similar here on the back end. But as admin, since you're managing those financials yourselves, you can resend invoice notifications as an email. You can mark them as paid or void them from one place. You can do this on a profile by profile basis. You can also do this through the financial settings, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Continuing ed, if that's something anyone's offering, if you're doing it through our proprietary LMS, courses and programs that are completed through the LMS are automatically stored back on the user's profile here with credit hours and descriptions attached automatically. And if those credits do expire, expiration dates are populated as well. Front-end users can see this themselves as well. That's one thing we didn't really talk about, but I can see my CEUs from my member profile, and it looks and feels just like a traditional transcript, certain things. So if certificates and things are being issued, I can upload copies of certificates that come from a course I've taken through CAI, or if it's come from a third-party source, I can add those credits through a form on my profile without having to go through an admin. So it's really a nice place to just track everything in one simple place. But admins can also add CEs if for some reason it's not being tracked through our LMS, or if you're not using the LMS and you're issuing credentials in person, it's easy enough to ad hoc add CE credits manually if you want to do it that way too. So there's a lot of data here that lives in a single profile. And then of course we've got engagement scores. It's an aggregate score based on these basic touch points within the system. So revenue that's being generated, contact touch points, emails that are opened, credit hours, logins, all of your basic engagement pieces. This score can be configured. So we'll take you into that. The weight distribution of each element within the engagement report is changeable. So right now we've got it set at 40, 50, 10 with an emphasis on login activity. If you want to track in the digital age, more email opens, you can configure this by moving the slider or typing in the percentage that you want to weigh this. As long as it adds up to 100, if it's more than that, the system won't let you, so it's smart enough to know. We can do math, which is nice, but it'll change the aggregate score based on how these are weighed. So you've got a nice glance at those engagement metrics over time, which is really great. It defaults to a 30-day window if you want to run a report based on who your heavy hitters are within the system. But you can widen these parameters like you can with just about every report in here and look at it on an annual scale, 2-year scale, 3-year scale. You can look at it week to week, day to day. It'll always give you that 30-day default, but you can do whatever you want with the time frames on that. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Does anybody have questions so far on just some of the stuff we've looked at? All right, cool. So let's take a look at the contact center. Again, we're trying to eliminate redundancies and streamline efficiency. That's the name of the game from the personify aspect here. We see that most of the clients we talk to, not just CAI chapters, but really any organization, they have some sort of email marketing tool, whether it's Constant Contact, MailChimp, Zoho. I mean, take your pick. Those are the ones we see most often. We've got a tool in here that can eliminate the need for that. So this is included. This is free. We give you some templates to start with, but you can customize any of the recurring campaigns that come out of the system right here using our template editor. Like Constant Contact, like MailChimp, this is all drag and drop. So if you want to start with, a basic template, you can apply that. If you need to add or remove elements, you can just drag them in here, give them placeholders. You can upload anything you have from your machine into the image library. So you can use logos, stock images, whatever you need. Really simple to use there. This defaults to the desktop view for editing content, but you can also do it in a mobile version as well. And if you want to preview something before it goes out, you can do it in desktop. I guess that's tablets and then mobile phones, and change the pixel ratio based on the types of devices you anticipate being read. So if you want to sample on a Microsoft Surface Pro versus an iPad or Pixel, you can do that before it goes out. So really easy to use this. Once you've built templates, you can store them up here. So you can reuse the same templates over and over like you would for a newsletter. You do not have to rebuild them from scratch every single time, which is always nice, super convenient. You can copy templates to use them for something else if you found something that works really well and you just want to change the color palette. Easy enough to do that. You can do the same thing with forms. This is pretty straightforward, so I won't beat a dead horse, but this would eliminate the need for a lot of those third-party email marketing features, since you're tracking the open rate through the member profile and through the message history and actually building the templates from the contact center. So it's full circle here. So we'll leave that. Let's talk about financials a little bit here. So there's two ways to sort of look at the payments that you're sort of processing. Think of this as more of an accounts receivable tool. It's not designed to eliminate something like a Sage or a QuickBooks. This is strictly just sort of your first touch look at your financials. We still recommend you have some bookkeeping software if you don't already, and retaining something like that. But if you want to look at just a list of invoices, you can do that. It's much more truncated. So if you're looking for a specific invoice ID number on the fly, this is going to be much faster since it'll give you balances and whatnot. Typically, what I like to demo is the transaction report aspect, because there are a lot more pieces that exist back here when you're querying things. So like the message history, it's giving you that 30-day window. You can move these parameters back. So we've got 12 transactions in the last 30 days. This is giving me the time and date stamp, the type of transaction, the description of that transaction, the status, what kind of transaction it was, whether it was a check, whether it was, if it had a transaction ID, what revenue account it's funneling into, and who sort of generated that invoice, the username associated with it. But I can filter through this if I want to do other things. So if I want to isolate a specific revenue account, I can do that. If I want to isolate a certain transaction type, I can do that. And it will readjust what I'm looking at based on what I've selected. So if we untag this and we just select 2 or 3 revenue accounts, we can isolate the one transaction that overlaps any of those 3 accounts. Anything that's been paid or reversed, status, payment types, so whether it's a credit card for those ad hoc invoices, if you've got credit card payments, checks, money orders, cash, you're taking payments a lot of different ways. Again, we don't want to pigeonhole you to doing it one way or another, but this just allows you to see like where that revenue is coming from, how you got it, which is great if you're having to issue invoices on the fly at an in-person event or out the door. And then if you want to filter by credit card type, you can do that too. So you've got a lot of data at your disposal to sort of funnel through your transactions here. And anything that you've queried is then exportable. So typically most folks these days are using online bookkeeping software, which is what we would recommend. So CSV is going to be your best friend. If you are one of the few folks using desktop, we can support that too. You would want the IIF file type if you're using desktop bookkeeping. So that's kind of my spiel in a nutshell. I want to open it up to questions because I know we got about 10 or 15 minutes left. So if there's anything I didn't cover that you want to see, happy to go through that. Let's see, I got a question in here. Is there a limit on how many upcoming events we can see from the dashboard or homepage? Good question. If you're looking at this dashboard, it'll show you no more than 3 recently past events and no more than 3 upcoming events in the dashboard view. Does that make sense?
Yes, we're dealing with an event right now that I believe the sign up was split between 2 events. So we're having a hard time seeing one of them. But we figured out a back way to access that. So it's not a huge deal, but just wanted to double check that we weren't missing something.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. 3 and 3 is the max on the dashboard view. You would have to go into the list of events through the community thing in the calendar here to sort of go through it one at a time if you want to do that. Let's see. Stephanie said, does your email or website support Adobe Flash? Yes, it does. It does. It just depends what you're using it for, but the website does support Adobe. Let's see. Pricing. So compared to Wild Apricot, MemberClicks is a bit more expensive. To give you sort of a peek behind the curtain, typically what we see folks using Wild Apricot for those types of clients more often than not are very, very small, or a lot of the times they're like startup organizations that don't really have a ton of revenue yet. They don't have a ton of budget yet. They don't have very many members. So we consider it our entry level solution. If you were to move from Wild Apricot to MemberClicks, we consider that an upgrade. So MemberClicks is quite a bit more substantial when it comes to what it can support, what you can do with the reporting, what you can do with all of the data that lives back here. They're similar in that they're both considered all-in-one solutions, but MemberClicks is more expensive than Wild Apricot. Not that much more expensive, but that's also a variable to consider. There is just the size of your chapter or your organization. The pricing is dictated based on how many records or how many members you have in your database. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the questions Tina was putting in the chat about event registration apps and just kind of events in general, if that's okay, Tina, not to call you out. So you'll see on the slide that's up here now, coming soon GTR events. We just acquired another company called GTR. Couldn't tell you what that acronym stands for. I think it was one thing, but they told us upon acquisition that it stands for Getting Technology Right. But what they do is full service events. So the event reg that you have access to with MemberClicks now through the forms, you'll still have access to that. The user experience at an event or at a conference through our conference app is an add-on cost, but it is something that you can purchase, and we do support that as well. GTR kind of fills in the gaps between those two things. So offering an event registration app, seeing a directory of events that can be registered for. We're still trying to figure out how they fit into the MemberClicks and Personify ecosystem. But essentially the big pieces that we're missing through our A to Z platform, like on-site services and support, badge printing, certain like unique apps for user experience, that's the stuff that GTR brings to the table. So we've got a press release on our website about what they do and how that acquisition came about. Hopefully they're telling us by mid to late Q1 of next year, we on the sales team will have free reign to sell the GTR products too. So a lot of stuff that's going into the issues you may be having around events, registration, editing, changing, reporting, all of that stuff may be fixed, will probably be fixed or supplemented with something from the GTR side of things. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure. That literally happened earlier this month, so it's still fresh. I don't know a lot about it, but we're slowly and surely getting introduced to the suite of products that GTR is offering. And then Kelly said we're out of time. So any last questions, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, I guess. And then I've got a quick slide up here if anyone wants to take a screenshot of this or take a picture of it, just the kind of the quick breakdown between implementation and support from Wild Apricot to MemberClicks. The key difference on the price difference between Wild Apricot and MemberClicks, the reason Wild Apricot is less expensive, it has a few less features than what MemberClicks offers. The other half of that is there's no setup costs associated with Wild Apricot because it's all DIY. So anybody who has used it in the past or is currently using it, you kind of understand that because you've been through it at least, in the last few years. We do have a designated onboarding team. We have implementation managers that handle training, onboarding, data migration, website migration through MemberClicks. So part of that $1,500 you're spending with us pays for that experience, and it's one-to-one. It's very hands-on. We give you templates, we give you training. It's very immersive, so you don't feel like you have to go through it by yourself like you do with Wild Apricot. The other reason that MemberClicks is a bit more expensive, just transparently, we have a designated support team for both Wild Apricot and MC Professional. MC Professional does have a phone queue, so you can call with questions, concerns, issues. Wild Apricot does not have a phone queue. It's only handled through emails and through a ticketing system. Long term, or especially this year, everyone has been having some issues with support. All of our clients have given us feedback about it on one way or another. We understand it's an issue, so this is a great opportunity to sort of cover that. The short-term support issues that we're addressing, we are cross-training folks on the Wild Apricot team to handle MC Professional support questions and concerns, and vice versa. We're training some of our MC support folks to handle Wild Apricot tickets as well. That's something we've been doing over the last 2 to 3 months, and a lot of those folks are ramped up and ready to answer calls. So going into Q4, and especially with Q1 right around the corner for 2023, the support element should not be as big of an issue as it's been this year. We were not immune to the Great Resignation like everybody else, so we've had to backfill some positions, cross-train people. It is what it is. That's just the nature of it. If for some reason that doesn't address the issues immediately in the short run, we do have a phase 2 for our support aspect on the growth piece to add headcount to our support team so that we can handle the volume of support calls that we've been getting. But we know it's an issue. We've been addressing it internally, and we've got plans to expand that team if need be in 2023. So we pride ourselves on our transparency and our candor, and I'll give you ladies a peek behind the curtain because it's something we've heard a lot of. So we are on top of it.
Thank you, Kyle. We appreciate it. And I know that Kyle is available if you have any other questions. I'm sure he's going to share with me this information, the discount information, so we can send it out to you along with the recording. So Kate, don't worry. I know you've been driving some, but we will have the recording of this so you can go back and look at it later. So we really appreciate it, Kyle. I appreciate all of you for taking the time to come on. And if you have any questions, please let one of us know. All right. And we'll see you all next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Have a great
everybody. I
day.
appreciate it.
Bye.